Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my racist neighbor Karen calls the cops on me when I decide to paint my house and ends up slapping my kid. Here is what happened. The title story starts like this. I recently learned that the house I bought comes with a free racist Karen living next door. Sadly, I did not actually want this downgrade, but it was too late as I already got the house. In all seriousness though, living next door to somebody that hates you based solely on your race can be horrible in multiple ways. For a little reference, my family are Chinese and Karen is white and looks pretty much like the dictionary definition of a Karen, which is why I'm calling her that for this story. Now, the house we got was perfect except for one small thing, and that was the garage. I have no idea why, but the garage looked like it was in complete shambles and neglected for years. The base of everything was good, but it desperately needed a fresh coat of paint. I'm not one to worry about getting my hands dirty, so I decided that I was just gonna paint it myself before we moved all of our stuff. My 10-year-old son decided that he wanted to help too, and while I know my kid helping might take longer, I can never say no to a bonding moment. We hadn't even started painting when Karen showed up to start trouble. We had only put down drop sheets and gotten the paint open and supplies ready when she came running over like something was on fire. I actually got worried that there was some kind of emergency until she opened her mouth and I could hear her. Karen, what do you idiots think you're doing? I didn't ask for anybody to paint the house. Me, excuse me? Karen, oh right, you probably don't speak English, huh? Come to my country without even knowing the language. I said I didn't ask for anybody to paint the house, especially not some idiot like you. Me, I heard you perfectly clear the first time. I just bought this house, so I don't know why you have anything to do with it being painted. Karen, well, aren't you a liar? Look at the type of neighborhood you're trying to pull your scam in. Everybody knows Asian people like you cannot afford to live in a nice neighborhood like this. You belong in some Chinatown somewhere selling fruit on the streets. Me, are you serious right now? Who the hell do you think you are coming onto my property and insulting me like this? Karen, I already told you that this is not your property. You don't have any money because you are poor. Me, you cannot judge wealth by race. Karen, you leave right now because I'm calling the cops. They are gonna arrest you thieves and kick you out of my country. She actually dials 911 and calls them right in front of me and my son. She starts telling them that she saw a bunch of thugs breaking into a house and stealing all of the nice things inside of it. Also, I was apparently very threatening and she was scared for her life. I had heard of people calling the cops with a fake story before, but I had never actually seen it happen in real life until that moment. Now, my son doesn't have the best attention span like most kids, and seeing two adults talking in general bores him and makes him wanna go and do something else. Since the only thing around to do was the painting and since he was excited to do it, he decided to take it upon himself to start. After Karen got off the phone and yelled at me for a few more minutes, she noticed that my son was painting. Karen, what the hell do you think you're doing, you little brat? She was faster than me and ran over to my son, slapping the paintbrush out of his hand. Despite my language, I had been fairly calm up to that point, but everybody has their breaking point. As a father, mine is anybody messing with my son, and she had hit that point from even just slapping the brush and hitting him. So when she took it a step further and actually slapped my son so hard that he fell to the ground, I lost all control of my actions. Mere seconds after hitting him, I had her knocked to the ground. I honestly can't remember where I hit her, but it must have been her head since I doubt falling onto the grass knocked her unconscious. I grabbed my son who was crying and we just sat like that until the police showed up. They did not know what to make of the situation because on one hand my kid had a clear handprint on his face and was crying still, on the other there was an unconscious lady on the ground and me just sitting there, clearly not hurt at all. I gotta say that I'm so thankful they didn't jump to any conclusions and just arrest me right then and there. It would have been all too easy for a cop to assume that I hurt this lady and possibly even my own kid. Instead, they asked me what happened and I explained to them the entire story from setting up to paint the house until they had arrived. I did not want to lie and admitted that after she hit my son, I knocked her out because I was seeing red and worried she would continue hurting him. I did not know since I got moved to a different area of the yard, but Karen woke up at some point that I was talking to police. She was still claiming that I was robbing the home and I had to be arrested for that and for attacking her unprovoked. Also, according to her, my kid was an adult and Asians can just look like kids sometimes. I bet the short one is actually older. I had set up cameras when I bought the house in case something happened before we moved in and nobody was around. I handed over that footage to show the police that all we were doing was trying to paint before Karen came in and started the fight. So they finally arrested Karen, and despite her protests, I was not arrested as they claim I acted in self-defense for my kid. The story doesn't end there though, because I got some massive revenge. Now, Karen had been calling me poor, but what she didn't know was that I'm a pretty rich guy. I'm a developer and I buy a ton of different kinds of properties for projects. Now, Karen, because of the arrest, ended up spending a lot of money on lawyers and court fees. This meant that she didn't have money for her mortgage and her house was being foreclosed on. I decided that it would be really poetic for me to swoop in and get her property for nice and cheap. You wanna insult my race, call the police on me, and assault my kid? I'll prove you wrong about being poor and buy your house out from under you. That's one way to get rid of a horrible Karen neighbor. By the way, I plan on selling her house to a much nicer person than she was to be my new neighbors. And yeah, Ripe Stars, that's exactly how you should get revenge on Karen. I hope she stays in a nice little cozy cell for a very long time. If you enjoyed the story so far, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment, because it would help me tremendously. Either way, the next one is a revenge story. This did not happen to me, it happened to my sister. My sister moved up to South Carolina from Florida about a year ago, but she still visits us periodically. We are a big and close family. Shortly after Thanksgiving, she flew down with her husband and son for one such visit. She has 3 geriatric dogs, so she got a house and dog sitter. MS, my sister, went through the basics of how they can only be fed at certain times. They get let out at certain times and they need to be in their crates from X hour to Z hour. Most importantly, they don't get treats. They get vitamins in place of treats, but those vitamins have to be given only twice a day. No people food, very strict diets, and they are all happy and healthy, but only because MS is so strict with their regime. So this lady, she got to watch her dogs had stellar reviews on the site she was found through. She is a stay-at-home mom who does this as a side thing for extra cash. I feel like I can end it here, you can guess where this is going. So MS left for Florida for a week. The first 5 days everything is going well. DS dog sitter texts MS regularly or video calls, she shows MS pictures and gives her regular updates of when she comes and goes to MS's house. MS just bought that house, by the way. She has been working her butt off to finally be able to afford it. She put so much into making that a nice home for her family. MS has some health problems herself. She's got a ton of prescription medication in her medicine cabinet. She brought enough for the week but left the rest at home. Stuff for epilepsy, asthma and allergies, but she's also got a ton of painkillers from when she had my nephew not that long ago. She is paranoid about becoming addicted, so she kept the pills for safety, but never used them. It's a full bottle, and on top of that she's been a collector of rare beer for about 15 years now. Beer that's now not even sold anymore because they were promotional from microbreweries. Beer she cannot get anymore because she doesn't live in Florida. Those bottles she keeps as mostly decoration in her kitchen. On the 6th day of her vacation, DS stops all communication altogether. MS texts, calls, emails, but nothing. Radio silence. She's got a bad feeling, but she doesn't want to kill the mood because she doesn't get to see her family very often anymore. Day 7, she gets on a late flight back to SC. The plane gets there around 2 in the morning. They drive an hour to their rural town. They get home, the front door is wide open. The lawn looks like someone in a truck, which DS happened to drive, just tried to go drifting over grass and a tree before vacating the premises super quick. MS goes to handle my nephew, who's groggy and screaming. It's been a rough day. She is thinking the worst, that someone robbed the house while this poor lady was there. MS's husband, BIL, goes inside to survey the damages. It's all clear. MS and nephew go inside too. The back door is wide open. The couch looks like it exploded. The rug in the living room and the couch and pretty much every square foot on the bottom floor is covered in the kind of pee and poop that can only be made from 3 geriatric furry buttholes. The dogs are thankfully still in the backyard, but they are shivering and filthy. There are broken beer bottles everywhere. Some have been stuffed deep in the trash to hide the evidence. Some have been refilled with water and put back with their tops precariously situated on top so they might look like they haven't been touched. 82 bottles, each growler sized, roughly 65 ounces gone. The medicine cabinet is like one of those western ghost towns with a tumbleweed bouncing through. MS is already thinking this DS threw herself a party. No way in heck could someone 5'6", 170 pounds drink that much beer and take that many pills and not be dead. So MS called the police, obviously. The police get there to figure this must be a break-in. They take a bunch of pictures, take an account of all the bottles and drugs that were missing. MS cleans what she can, but gets to sleep because thankfully the upstairs hasn't been touched. One day later, the police find DS. MS has assumed she is dead and abducted, so the police were looking for her and her car. Finally, they found the truck run off the side of a highway, with this lady about 2 miles up tweaking out of her mind, walking along the side of the road screaming at nothing. They take her in for whatever charges, I don't know. Her husband bails her out and picks her up. According to her husband, this has happened before. DS has a drug and alcohol problem. At first she is messaging my sister, super apologetic, saying she will reimburse MS and please don't press charges on me. MS quotes her the price of the rug, a new couch and the vet bills because her dog had somehow gained access to 9 containers of doggy vitamins and one of them was having liver failure. By the way, the dog is fine now, but she is an old Yorkie, so who knows. Also, MS buys in bulk from a wholesaler, hence 9 containers. The total was somewhere around $800. MS didn't bother with the beers, the meds, the lawn, cleaning the house. She could have, heck, I would have. On top of that, MS demanded DS never dog sit again, and she had to refund MS for her dog sitting. MS works in advertising, I won't say what kind, but basically, if she saw/sees DS advertising herself as a dog sitter ever again, she has the means to drag this lady until all she sees is mud for the rest of her life. DS insists that she's gonna pay it back, but that MS has to wait until they get their taxes back. Okay, so MS waits. Late February, she texts DS asking where her money is. DS immediately starts saying how she didn't do anything wrong. MS is a bad dog owner and her dogs are miserable. None of the stuff MS says DS did was actually done. MS has all the old texts of DS admitting to all of it, so this goes on for a while. Eventually, DS starts saying how, as a courtesy, she has a friend who owns a furniture store and she will give MS a credit of $200 for a new couch. And she has an old rug she doesn't want anymore that MS can have. What? She paid MS about $500, but insists she will get the coupon to MS soon. March goes by, nothing happens. Around March 20th, MS marches her happy butt to the small claims court and files. Then she snaps pictures of everything, then she sends DS the message. As a courtesy, I'm letting you know that I just filed this at the small claims court. And then the fun starts. This lady goes off on MS. She says she's going to sue for slander and undue distress and harassment and blah blah blah. MS saves all of it, including the fun bits where DS threatens her family and calls her the C word 20 dozen times. Today's what? April 6th? Tuesday was the court date. Things move fast in a small town. I don't know, this lady shows up looking like she just got run through by a garbage disposal. She gives the judge her sob story talking about how she did nothing but give MS and her animals the best care, that MS is making all this up. Yeah, MS has the OG cop with her. She's got pictures of all the damage, the vet bills, the bottles, proof that she was out of town, and the police reports of both the break-ins as well as DS's WI the following day. DS tries to spin it with that one law about how you cannot serve alcohol to a known alcoholic. That obviously gets thrown right the F out. DS then tries to appeal to the judge and MS's sense of humanity. She tells them how her husband just left her and is suing her for full custody, good, and that if she cannot dog sit, how is she supposed to support herself now or ever get her kids back? Tough cookies. The judge takes my sister's side for obvious reasons, come the F on. So DS is homeless now, living with her parents, and she cannot see her kids, who by the way don't want to see her. Apparently, she was a drunk who ran her hubby's credit all the way down, and she was also abusive to her kids, and because of her heavy alcohol abuse, one of her kids has FAS. DS has 60 days to pay the remaining $300 or she faces jail time. I don't know how much time, sorry. Her husband filed for divorce already. Oh, and she lost her license thanks to that DWI. As a former addict myself and someone who has been through a DWI, I want to sympathize, that's a lot of stuff to go through. MS gave her chance after chance, but at some point you have to take responsibility for your actions. It really seems like this lady has just been using her husband as a crutch while she tries to get better, only to backslide hard. It is rough, I know. I hope she gets the help she needs. MS dogs are doing well. She got a replacement couch on Amazon for like $75 and a nice fluffy rug for even less. DS eventually coughed up that coupon, it didn't even work. It was for something like 20% off with a purchase of $500 or more. So no thanks. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP went too far, or did the lady all deserve it in the end for her actions? I am very curious about what you have to say, because the opinions on Reddit were kind of split, to be honest. This one is titled Revenge on Rude People. I work as a train driver. I drive smaller trains mostly out on the countryside, and people are generally nice and well behaved. But of course, there are also the alcoholics, drug addicts and general weirdos that use public transport, and some people that just live to be a pain in the butt. This was a few years ago. We were traveling in the late afternoon and my conductor, let's call him C, storms into the driver's cabin, angry and annoyed, and tells me, "C, we have 2 rude good-for-nothing guys on board, and they are such a-holes." Me? What did they do? C, they have no tickets, refuse to pay, and just laugh up in my face and are saying, "What are you gonna do about it?" Me, what the hell? Should I help you throw them off at the next stop? C, we can't because they are just traveling 1 station, so they are getting off at the next stop. Damn smug guys with their "what you gonna do about it?" So then we are both angry. I let the conductor rant and let off some steam. Next stop comes and the guys get off. The conductor angrily gestures at them. "That's them, they're little pricks." We continue the short remaining journey and have a break at the end station. Some hours later, the train then goes back. Since it is on the countryside and it's a late weekend evening, the train is almost empty on the way back. The conductor knows every passenger on board is getting off and she is up at front with me, chatting and all is fine again. Until we approach the station where we let those guys off. We see 2 people standing there, and it is them. My conductor besides me shines up like a damn sun. She says with the biggest smile on her face, "Don't stop." And I am just laughing, slowing down the train, not stopping though, and when we pass them, my conductor opens the window, waves and says loud and happily, "That is what I'm gonna do about it." The guys are just staring at her with their jaws on the ground when we drive past them. We are laughing. All the way to our home station. We were the last train for the day. Edit, I wrote in the comments that we encountered these guys again a few weeks later. I will post it here as well, because these guys did not learn the first time. They apparently got on at the same station like last time, but we did not notice them. They had plans to travel further than last time, but when the conductor went out to check the tickets, it went like this. Conductor spots them, recognizes them, says loudly among the other travelers, "Oh, are you able to pay for your tickets today?" They just fidget and say, "No, we ain't got no money." See, well, ain't that a shame? I guess you have to get off at the next stop then. Them, what the hell? Can't you be nice and let us be? What the F are we gonna do at that crappy station? C says, "Guys, I don't give a damn. You're going off this train and you can walk to the next station. I'm calling the train behind us so they won't pick you up either." They got off and the other train called us later because they saw the guys walking on a forest path along the railway track. And I have not seen these guys since. And yeah guys, obviously, if you are riding the train without a ticket, which is already not good in the first place, but I can sometimes maybe understand it given you are in really bad circumstances, you should at least not act like a douchebag. But then again, that's pretty much the golden rule for life. Just don't be a douchebag. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I recently realized how truly screwed up my family is. More specifically, how messed up my father is. I had always brushed it past, saying most families have problems, but only when he scammed my brother and then tried to sue him did I realize that some people cannot be redeemed. I still cannot believe someone like my mother could have ever been married to him. She is an angel and I am certain that she is the reason Riley, my brother, grew up to be the most hardworking person I have ever known. He is 33 years old now, and around the time he was born, our father started a diner. This business was dear to all of us, but it meant the most to Riley because it was named after him. The first few years, the diner was constantly filled with customers. They came for the hamburgers and stayed for the shakes. The first hit to business was when a cheaper fast food joint started up right across from Dad's diner. The diner survived this competition just fine, but the real problem started when bigger fast food joints like KFC and McDonald's opened up on the same street. This was around the time our mother was diagnosed with cancer and everyone was too occupied with her recovery to be able to focus on the diner. To make matters worse, Dad had the audacity to cheat on his wife while she was undergoing chemotherapy. The minute she got a little better, he applied for a divorce in an attempt to establish claim over the numerous properties they collectively owned. All Mom got in the end was the house she wanted to spend her last moments in and the custody of both her children. Normally, getting custody over children while being this sick would have been hard, but it seemed that Dad did not really want anything to do with us anymore. Despite getting this much, he was still angry that he could not get Mom's house. That should have been the first sign to stay away from him, but Riley still believed he was capable of being a decent father deep down. Really, really deep down at least. We had cut off all contact with him for a good long time. We were not even invited when he got married for the second time. Riley stayed with our mom in her house for a long time. He looked after her during her weakest years. To our joy, she was victorious in her battle against cancer, but it definitely took a lot from her. Her body looked like it was half of what it used to be, but throughout everything, she was still her. This is what made it so hard to believe that a woman like that could be married to Dad. Just when I thought we had probably gotten away from him for good, Riley told me that he happened to run into Dad when he visited the diner and ended up buying the damn thing. I asked him how he had managed to get the money to do that, considering we were all financially devastated from the chemotherapy, and he told me he had made an agreement with Dad where he paid half the amount now, and as he managed to get more money from running the diner, he would pay a predetermined amount every month to Dad till he eventually paid the entire cost of the place. I could tell that Riley genuinely seemed to think that Dad had done him a favor, but my biggest concern was how slow business seemed. When I asked him about this, he told me that Dad showed him the accounts from the past few months and the profits seemed pretty good. This did not make sense to me because the place was usually empty, even on weekends, but Riley was convinced that due to the number of years the diner had been around, it had developed loyal patrons who kept the place going. Additionally, he wanted to implement a new marketing strategy that Dad said will draw in new customers. I was still skeptical, but I figured that when all is said and done, the man was still our father, and what father would willingly screw over his own child? I think Riley assumed that this would almost make them business partners and give him a chance to have a father-son relationship once more, but Dad just used the diner to boss over him and to attempt getting the house from my mom. He used the money he got by selling his old business to start a new one with his second wife. It is odd to consider her our stepmother, considering we are around the same age, and together they managed to generate a lot of money for retirement. The diner, on the other hand, got progressively worse owing to old equipment and too much competition. It hurt to watch my brother struggle to keep his head above water, but there was not much I could do to help. My father had sold his son a dying business to make money to start a new business, and it was now too late to do anything. Riley tried running new promotions, but that only resulted in higher expenditure. After a few months, he was unable to keep paying Dad. We never would have guessed that Dad would actually sue his own son, but he did. He added Mom's house to the lawsuit. He said that is what his new wife wanted, so they would have the necessary resources to be able to run their business better, but even a person who had just met him could tell that greed was all that drove him. He saw this as another opportunity to get Mom's house, which he assumed was also registered under Riley's name. When Riley was staying with Mom to look after her when she was sick, Mom told Dad that she will get the house transferred to her son's name so she wouldn't have to deal with her ex-husband anymore, but she was bluffing. Basically, Dad ended up adding a property that did not even belong to Riley to the lawsuit. We pleaded with him to not go through with it. However, it did not matter to him. He did not even care if he could never see his grandchildren again. I was so angry, but I felt helpless at the same time because I could not stop him from suing my brother. Then I realized there are other ways I could help him out. I contacted my friend who graduated top of his class in law school, and with his help we managed to turn the case around. His lawsuit was declared void for involving a property that belonged to someone who is not even part of the trial. Riley countersued him for falsely altering the accounts and cooking the books to trick him into buying a dying business. This was enough to significantly hamper his new business, but we did not stop there. I reported him to the IRS the moment I found out he was not paying taxes for his new business. Even in the accounts he had given Riley, there was never any mention of tax, so it was not a far-fetched assumption that he was evading tax with his new business as well, and as it turns out, I was right. This resulted in the IRS seizing his business and shutting it down. He was required to pay a large fine as well, and this had him declare bankruptcy right before his retirement. I wanted to feel bad for him, but how could I when he tried to do the same to his own son? And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.